They say betrayal never comes from your enemies. And for Maya, that truth shattered everything. It started with a simple dinner her fiancé table for two. But under the candlelight, something darker flickered. This isn't just a story of love gone wrong. It's a story of identity, stolen trust burned, and a woman who refused to break. My name is Sophie Hart, and for a long time I thought my life was exactly where it needed to be. I had a fiancé I loved, a sister I trusted with my soul, and a future I could almost reach out and touch. We were planning a wedding in spring, delicate lavender blooms, candlelight, and a small garden in the city where Noah proposed to me. I had my dream dress tucked away in a garment bag, and my Pinterest board was overflowing. I thought I was building something beautiful. I didn't know I was building a stage for betrayal. It started on an ordinary Tuesday evening. Noah and I had just come back from a dinner with friends. He was tired, said he needed to shower. I stayed in the living room sipping a glass of wine and scrolling through my phone. I didn't intend to go through his. I never had. But when I walked into our bedroom to get my charger and saw his phone lighting up over and over with message notifications, something inside me paused. It wasn't a hunch. It was a quiet whisper. A knowing. His screen lit up again. Miss you already, can't wait to feel your lips again. It could have been anyone. Anyone, I told myself. But I picked up the phone. The messages were from Lila, my sister, my only sister, my best friend since childhood who once held my hand during our father's funeral and whispered, "I'll never let anyone hurt you." And yet here she was. I stood frozen rereading the conversation. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't a slip. It was an affair. Photos, voice notes, references to nights they'd spent together when I thought he was on work trips, private jokes, intimate language. And worst of all, she called him baby, the same word I used as if she wore my skin when I wasn't looking. I couldn't breathe. My heart didn't shatter all at once, it cracked like glass under slow pressure. Tiny fissures at first, then the whole thing fell in a million quiet, cruel pieces. I didn't confront Noah that night. He came out of the shower, kissed me on the cheek, and crawled into bed. I climbed in beside him, curled up with a stranger who used to be my home. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling for hours, counting the cracks in the plaster, wondering how many lies had lived in this room. The next morning, I woke up before him and went into the guest room, locked the door. I told him I had a migraine. He brought me coffee and whispered, "Feel better, Soph." The audacity of it, the softness in his voice while my soul was screaming. I needed a plan. So I called the only person who would understand Ezra, my best friend since college. Ezra with his ocean-deep empathy and razor-sharp instincts. He picked up on the second ring. "What's wrong?" he asked instantly. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I told him everything flat and colorless like I was narrating someone else's nightmare. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "We're going to burn this betrayal down with elegance." I didn't want a screaming match. I didn't want drama. I wanted clarity. I wanted them to see me fully awake, unbroken. So I made a reservation. Aria, our favorite restaurant. Mine and Noah's. Ironically, it had just become theirs too. I'd seen Lila tag it on her story last week. The same booth we always sat in. I made the reservation for Friday night. 2 tables, one under my name, one under his. That morning I texted Ezra 8 p.m. "Wear black. Let's make history." Friday came. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I wore my red velvet dress, the one I'd been saving for my bachelorette party. I slipped on heels and pulled my hair back. My lips were the color of war. Ezra whistled when he picked me up. "You look like revenge," he said. "I feel like a funeral," I replied. We walked into Aria at 7:58. Our table was at the window, perfect view of the entrance. Ezra ordered wine. I just sat heart-thudding waiting. And then they walked in, Lila first laughing, wearing my dress. Not one like mine. The blush pink wrap dress I lent her last fall never got back. Noah followed his hand low on her back, whispering something into her ear. I didn't flinch. I watched them sit. They hadn't seen me yet. Then I stood, calmly walked to the maitre d'. "Would you mind combining our tables?" I asked sweetly. "We know each other very well." Their faces when they saw me, devastation, panic, guilt, confusion. Lila's jaw dropped. Noah went pale. I slid into the seat across from them. Ezra followed, sipping his wine like this was just another casual evening. "Hello," I said. "Nice night for a reunion." No one spoke. Noah finally stammered, "Sophie, this isn't what it looks like." "It looks like my sister is sleeping with my fiancé," I interrupted, "and I'm wearing mascara waterproof enough for this exact moment." Lila tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "I'm not here to yell. I just want to sit with you, to feel what betrayal feels like up close." The silence was suffocating. Ezra didn't say a word. His presence was enough, like armor. "I wore this dress," I said, gesturing to Lila, "to our engagement dinner. I see you thought it looked better on you." Lila opened her mouth, then closed it. Noah reached for her hand, cowardice in motion. "Was it fun?" I asked, voice low. "Living a double life? Did you laugh about me? Was I just a naive little story you shared over wine?" "No," Noah whispered. "It wasn't like that." Lila leaned forward, her voice trembling. "It just happened. We didn't plan it. We didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did, Lila. Every single text you sent, every time you kissed him, every lie. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice." I stood up. "I didn't come here for closure. I came to return what you broke my silence." Then I looked at Noah. "I loved you. I almost married you, and you let her steal everything." I looked at Lila next. "You didn't just take him. You took my dress, my dreams, my dignity. But you didn't take me." Then I smiled, cold and clean. "We're done here." I walked out. Ezra followed, no words needed. The city lights felt harsh but freeing. The night ended in silence. But it wasn't peace. It was the beginning of something bigger. I didn't sleep that night either. After confronting them at Aria, I returned to my apartment and stood at the window watching the city flicker. It was too quiet, as if the buildings themselves were holding their breath. My body was still, but my thoughts were a storm. Every word, every glance, every laugh we ever shared now felt contaminated, rewritten by deceit. How long had they planned it? How many lies had been spun between the cracks of "I love you" and "I'll always be there for you"? The next morning, I packed Noah's things into boxes. I didn't rage. I didn't break his things like a woman in a movie. I folded each shirt, each memory with mechanical calm, as if burying a body required neatness. I left the ring on top. No note, no second chances. By noon, he was pounding on my door. "Sophie, please. Just let me talk to you." I didn't answer. "I messed up," he begged. "But it wasn't just sex. It got complicated. I didn't know how to tell you." That was supposed to comfort me, that he loved her, that this wasn't meaningless. I opened the door an inch enough for my voice. "You don't have the right to speak love to me. Not anymore." Then I shut it. He didn't knock again, but Lila did. 2 days later, she showed up, no call, no warning. holding a tin of our mother's lemon cookies, as if sugar could sweeten betrayal. "Please," she said, "can I come in?" I stepped aside, not out of forgiveness but curiosity. I wanted to see how she'd spin the knife this time. She looked thinner, like the guilt had cost her sleep too. She walked through the living room like it was still hers, sat on the couch where we used to binge-watch rom-coms and braid each other's hair. "I messed up," she said quietly. "I know that." I waited. No words of comfort. I owed her nothing. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Soph," she continued. "It started as a mistake, but then he made me feel seen, like I wasn't just your little sister." There it was, jealousy, the shadow that had always lived in our bloodline. The one I ignored every time she copied my outfits, took credit for my ideas, dated guys who used to flirt with me. I thought she admired me. She wanted to be me. "You didn't want my life, Lila," I said. "You wanted to erase me and wear my skin." Her face crumpled. "No, that's not fair." "What's not fair is that I loved you. I protected you. I would have fought for you. And you used that against me." She reached into her bag and handed me an envelope. "I wrote everything down. I thought maybe if you read it." "I don't want your version of the story." I cut her off. "I lived the real one." She left the envelope on the coffee table and walked out. I didn't touch it. Not that night. Not ever. For days, I didn't leave the apartment. I ghosted texts, dodged calls. Even Ezra couldn't get me out of bed. I lived on tea and toast and grief. My body moved through the world like it was underwater. Then one night, my phone buzzed. It was a name I hadn't seen in years, Zara. We'd been close in college. She moved to Berlin after graduation, lost touch after a messy breakup and time zones. But she'd always been intuitive. Her message was simple. I saw the photos. "Call me." Photos. I opened Instagram and my stomach dropped. There they were, Lila and Noah, in Bali, smiling, holding hands in front of a sunset. Captioned, "Healing, starting over, love wins." The post had thousands of likes, comments full of hearts and congratulations. Healing, healing from what? From the wreckage they caused, I couldn't believe it. The dress Lila wore in the photo's mine. The quote in her caption, something I said in my maid of honor speech at our cousin's wedding. She was stealing me. Piece by piece, image by image, online and offline. And no one knew. No one but me. And suddenly, I wasn't just heartbroken. I was furious. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft. Ezra was the one who helped me see it clearly. "They didn't just take your fiancé," he said. "They're taking your identity, your narrative, your aesthetic, your voice. They're making me disappear," I whispered. He nodded. "But you haven't disappeared. You're just silent. Time to change that." We spent the next few days gathering proof. Screenshots, old texts, original photos, dates, times. All the subtle, quiet erasures Lila had performed, reposting things that were mine down to interior decor ideas from my vision board. She even used my Spotify playlists in her stories. It wasn't coincidence. It was obsession. One night, I visited my mom. I hadn't told her anything yet. I wasn't ready for the inevitable, her defending Lila. Our mom had always been soft on her. "She's just sensitive," she used to say every time Lila crossed a line. But I needed to know where she stood. She made tea as usual and asked about wedding plans, still oblivious. "I called it off," I said flatly. Her spoon clinked in her cup. "Why, what happened?" "Ask your youngest daughter." Her lips parted. "Lila, what about her?" "She and Noah have been having an affair for almost a year." The silence that followed was deafening. I waited for rage, for a gasp, for something. Instead, she sighed. "Sweetheart, maybe it just happened. Sometimes people find chemistry in unexpected places." I stared at her. "You think this is chemistry? I'm just saying, things are never black and white." "No," I snapped. "Sometimes they're blood red." She didn't defend Lila further, but she didn't defend me either. I left. I couldn't breathe in that house anymore, especially when I saw Lila's sneakers at the door, my old sweatshirt on the coat rack. She was living there, like a replacement child. My grief turned to fire. That night, I went back through old photos, memories I'd once loved. There was one in particular, a shot I'd taken at a cliffside beach 2 years ago. The angle, the edit, the caption. And then I saw it on Lila's page, posted that week, cropped slightly. Caption changed, but it was mine, my art, my vision. I took a screenshot and saved it. That was the final straw. They took my love, my trust, my voice, my space, my style. But they would not take my truth. The war wasn't over. But now I was no longer in the dark. There's a strange clarity that comes after a storm. Not peace, not yet, but something cleaner, sharper, like the shards of what's left start to glint in the light. That's where I was, sitting alone in my apartment, no longer crying, no longer pacing, just still, observing. And for the first time in weeks, I felt aware of myself, my pain, my strength, my silence, and how it had been weaponized against me. They thought I would disappear, but I was just watching. For a long time, I believed power came from being the bigger person, staying silent, letting things go, taking the high road. That's what I was taught. Grace under fire. But I was learning that sometimes silence is permission, and I had been giving it freely, until now. That night, I opened a fresh notebook and wrote a single sentence at the top of the first page. "This is my story, not theirs." I made lists of the things they took, of the ways they mimicked, of the lies they told, of the people who believed them. I listed every moment I ignored my instincts, every red flag I brushed aside. The strange distance, the hesitations, the convenient work trips, the odd tension when Noah's name came up around Lila. I saw it all now, in high definition. I wasn't stupid. I was trusting, and that difference mattered. I went to therapy for the first time in years. My therapist, a woman named Kalina with a soft voice and steel in her spine, listened without judgment. "They didn't just betray you," she said. "They dismantled your identity." I nodded. "And everyone seems okay with it." "That's because your strength made it look easy. But Sophie, being strong doesn't mean being silent. There's a difference between healing and hiding." That hit hard. I didn't want to hide anymore, so I started speaking. First to people I trusted, Ezra, my cousin Dina, a few friends from grad school. I told them everything. No filters, no softening the blow. And every time I told the story, it got easier, like I was reclaiming my voice syllable by syllable. "I knew something was off," Dina said. "The way Lila would always turn conversations to herself. She used to ask me if people liked her more than you. I thought it was just insecurity." It wasn't insecurity. It was entitlement. And now that she had what she wanted, Noah, the apartment, even my followers, she was using it as a stage, sharing healing journeys and spiritual breakthroughs from their villa in Bali. I watched their videos like watching actors perform a version of my life. One clip showed her wearing my necklace, a birthday gift from Noah engraved with a private phrase he used to whisper in my ear. Now she was using it as a caption. I stopped watching after that, not out of weakness, but because I realized something powerful. They didn't have a story without me. They were living off the echo of my life, my words, my essence. And echoes fade. Mine wouldn't. That's when the idea struck. I'd always been a writer, quietly, privately. Journals, poems, short essays saved in a folder called Someday. I never shared them. Too personal, too vulnerable. But now the fear of being seen felt smaller than the fear of being erased. So I started writing. Not just journals, not just rants, but a real narrative. Raw, honest, filled with the kind of pain that doesn't ask for pity. Only truth. Ezra read the first draft of what would become an essay titled, "When They Took Everything I Found Myself." He cried. And he's not the crying type. "This is gold," he said. "This is your power." He helped me submit it anonymously to a few platforms. It got picked up fast. One publication ran it under their Modern Love section. The comments were overwhelming. Hundreds of women shared similar stories. Betrayal by a friend, a sister, a partner. The same feeling of being erased replaced rewritten. And suddenly, I wasn't alone. I was seen. I was heard. One reader messaged, "I thought I was crazy until I read your words. Thank you for helping me name it." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about revenge. It was about reclamation. I didn't need to expose them with screenshots or dirty secrets. I didn't need to post photos or throw shade or drop names. The truth had its own voice. Quiet, steady, undeniable. It didn't scream. It whispered. And the world listened. Months passed. I started rebuilding, moved to a new place, a smaller apartment with big windows and warm light. I filled it with plants, soft rugs, and silence I chose for myself. I painted again, messy, abstract strokes, not for Instagram, but for healing. I reconnected with Zara. She flew in for a weekend. We drank wine on the balcony, laughed about our old dorm disasters, and talked about who we used to be. "You look stronger," she said. "Not harder, just more real." I smiled. I think I finally met myself. One morning I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was Lila's. Inside was a single photograph used as kids, sitting on the front porch eating ice cream, smiling. Before boys, before betrayal, before ambition turned to envy. On the back she'd written, "I'm sorry I became the storm that broke us. I miss who we were, but I know we can't go back. I hope someday you'll remember the girl in this picture. I miss her too." I didn't cry. I didn't write back. But I placed the photo in a drawer, not to forget, but to remember where the fracture began and how far I'd come since. Lila would always be part of my story, but she would never own it. This awakening wasn't about destroying them. It was about rebuilding me. There's a moment in every comeback when things begin to realign. Not suddenly, not like lightning, but like tectonic plates quietly shifting under your feet. You don't see it happening, but you feel it. The ground starts to steady, the fog begins to lift, and you realize you're not lost anymore. That was where I was, not healed, not whole, but oriented. For the first time in a long while, I knew where I was going, and more importantly, who I wasn't dragging with me anymore. It started with a job offer, not from a stranger, from him, Noah. He emailed me out of nowhere. No apology, no explanation. Just a short clipped message titled, "Opportunity." He was launching a new creative firm, needed a lead strategist for brand identity. "Your voice has always been powerful," he wrote. "We could use that again." We, like nothing happened. Like the betrayal, the theft of my ideas, my life, my peace, could be folded neatly into a business plan. I stared at the screen, stunned, half amused, half livid. Did he really think I'd come running? That a paycheck could stitch what he tore, but it wasn't anger I felt, not anymore. It was clarity. He hadn't reached out because he missed me. He reached out because my power was showing again. My essay had gone viral. 3 platforms, thousands of shares, podcast requests. I was suddenly on everyone's radar, not as Noah's ex or Lila's quiet sister, but as Sophie Hale, the writer who turned Betrayal into art. And that Sophie, she didn't go back to old cages, no matter how shiny the key. I didn't respond to his offer, but I took a screenshot of the email. I saved it in a folder labeled Proof. Not for revenge, just to remember that even when they tried to erase me, the world still wanted to hear my voice. And that's when something shifted again. People started reaching out. Not just readers, brands, creative agencies, film studios. A woman named Celine from a digital publishing house sent me a message. "I read your piece 5 times. It's not just a story, it's a blueprint for survival. We'd love to talk about turning it into a memoir. No pressure. Just think about it." A memoir? The thought terrified me. Not because I couldn't write it, but because I'd have to relive it. In detail, name the demons, open the wounds. But then I remembered what Kalina, my therapist, once said. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means integrating the truth without letting it devour you. So I said yes. I rented a cabin in Vermont for 2 weeks. No social media, no emails, just my laptop, some old journals, and silence. I wrote like I was bleeding truth. Every morning I poured memories into pages. The way Lila looked when she first met Noah, the slow fade of his attention the night I found out the ache of realizing my silence had made room for their lies. But I also wrote about the strength, the voice, the rebirth. And somewhere in that quiet cabin between cups of coffee and long walks under orange-leafed trees, I met someone new. Me. Not the me who needed to be chosen, not the me who begged for clarity, but the me who didn't wait anymore. When I got back to the city, I felt different. Calmer, quieter, but more dangerous in the best way. I wore the necklace Lila once stole back on purpose. Not to take it from her, but to reclaim it. It was mine. A symbol of a love that didn't survive, sure, but also a symbol of who I'd been before they tried to rewrite me. Ezra noticed. "You're glowing in a way that doesn't ask for permission," he said. I laughed. "It's revenge in the form of peace." And it was, because real revenge is not proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right, without them. A few weeks later, I ran into Lila. Completely random. A book launch. She was there with someone else. Not Noah. Her hair was longer. Her smile looked tight. She spotted me and froze. We didn't speak, but she came up to me later near the bar, her voice barely above a whisper. "You look happy," she said. "I am." She nodded. "I wasn't expecting you to rise like this." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't feel anger. I felt pity, because I saw it. The regret behind her eyes, the weight of playing a role she didn't write. The guilt that no vacation or new boyfriend could wash away. She'd won the battle, but I was winning the war, and I didn't need her apology. I needed my future. I walked away without saying another word, and I knew in that moment that she'd never forget the way I did it. Calm, collected, unbothered. She had stolen my story, but I'd written a better one,